Hello and welcome to this episode of the Juggle is Real podcast. I'm Andryanna, and I'm so thankful that you chose to hit play on this episode because it is a good one. You are going to get so many incredible takeaways like I did. My conversation today is with Marissa Teeter, who is just an incredible person. And it's so inspiring for me to be able to have these conversations. Marissa Teeter is a sought after business advisor, executive coach, and keynote speaker with a solid track record and impressive results, being a senior wealth executive and business leader. And her magic really lies in that unique ability she has to drive excellence, solve complex problems, build solutions, and drive growth with proven results for business leaders, owners, executives, and entrepreneurs. She has both led and coached leaders who own and run multi-million and multi-billion with a B dollar enterprises. She's had such an incredible career. She is fluent in both French and English, has held corporate executive roles, consulted for Fortune 500 companies, and really helps her teams thrive as a group and, most importantly, as individuals. She has received many accolades over the years for both professional and personal community achievements, being recognized as top 40 under 40 for investment industry professionals. She's also earned executive certifications from Wharton, Georgetown, Schulich, and Harvard Business Schools. And she's also a mom. This interview, we go over so many incredible topics. I can't wait to share it with you. So let's just dive right in. Hey, I'm Andryanna, and this is the Juggle is Real podcast. As I share my ongoing journey from experiencing burnout to leading a more mindful and intentional life with better balance, I hope you feel seen, that you realize your worth, lighten your load, and prioritize your own needs. As we hear from leading experts and well-known faces in the wellness, entrepreneurship, education, and motherhood space, I hope you gain insights, proven practices, and learn actionable tools to help you enjoy the juggle of work, family, and everything in between with a little less stress and a lot more ease, joy, and fun. Most of all, I hope you find what you need to simplify, streamline, and supercharge your own journey of better balance and self-love. Are you with me? Let's get started. Before we get into today's episode, I want to share an exclusive but limited time offer that you can enjoy as we celebrate 100 plus episodes of the Juggle is Real podcast. Now, I've been celebrating, I love to celebrate both the big and the small wins, both of my own and of yours, and to show my immense gratitude for your listenership, for your incredible support. I want you to enjoy a discount off of the Juggle is Real Authentic Self-Care Planner. Now, this guide is a 3-month planner that's going to help you in really finding that better balance, in finding joy amidst the chaos, and really enjoying that ease. There is empowering content filled with mindfulness prompts, the goal-setting templates, inspirational short stories that I've written, and this planner really guides you to prioritize your self-care without the guilt. It has this incredible user-friendly design with practical layouts and engaging prompts to make it easy to integrate self-care into your daily routines. And you have all of the support of the Juggle is Real community with you, knowing that other like-minded women are also on this journey to living a more intentional life. So celebrate 100 episodes with me, celebrate all of your small wins, release your guilt, and move into better balance with the Juggle is Real Authentic Self-Care Planner, now with an exclusive discount that is only offered for a very limited time. You can find the Juggle is Real Authentic Self-Care Planner on Amazon, or head to the notes for this podcast episode where there is a link for you to enjoy the discount now. Rediscover the joy of putting yourself first and order your planner today to start that journey. Enjoy a summer with a more balanced and fulfilled life with the Juggle is Real Authentic Self-Care Planner. Now let's get into today's episode. Marissa, thank you so much for being here today. I'm so looking forward to this conversation. We have lots to talk about. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you. Thanks so much for having me. This is a real honor and pleasure. And I love the work that you're doing and what you're putting out. So it's exciting to be a small part of that. So thanks for having me.
Well, I appreciate your time, and I have so many things I want to ask because you've lived such an incredible life. Your journey has been so beautiful, and your career specifically is so inspirational. And I typically start by asking guests just to sort of tell us about themselves. But in this case, for this interview, I'd really like to ask you just a number of questions about your journey, if that is okay with you.
Of course, yes, I'm in good hands. Go ahead.
Okay. Okay. So just the first one really just goes back all the way to grade school because
Mm.
you've noted that you were bullied in grade school. And I think a lot of us can relate to that, but it really impacted your life in so many different ways. And you didn't quite realize this until there was a turning point in your 30s. So can you start by just sharing more about this? Like, how did this early age bullying impact you? And what was that turning point that then helped you to release it and move on?
Yeah, thank you for asking. I think things happen to us that we're when we're young, and it's maybe not bullying. It could have been an incident or a series of incidents that I think sometimes we carry them with them in us in life and maybe don't even realize that we're dragging that extra luggage around. For me, when I was in grade 4, 5, 6, I don't know. I was probably the tallest kid in the class. I stood out in that regard. I was smart, and I'm comfortable saying that now. I was a smart kid. I was considered the teacher's pet, and I really took a lot of slack for that. I fortunately had amazing teachers who identified really quickly what was happening at recess to me, just in terms of the name calling and the mental warfare, if you will, that was being inflicted upon me by these young girls. And these are teachers who would, find a way to bring me in to do extra work in class, which, in hindsight may or may not have helped the situation of being called a teacher's pet, but at least I felt they had support. And back then, as you know, the bullying essentially was only at school. These girls couldn't get to me at home because we had a landline, and the only way to get to me was through the landline, through my parents, and then to get to me. So it only really happened at school. And at the time, my mom's advice was always, they're just jealous of you, right? They're just jealous. They'll get over it. You just stick to doing what you're doing. And it's funny because years later, my mom and I had this conversation. I have a daughter now and a son too. I mean, bullying happens to boys and girls. And she asked me if I thought she handled that time in my life properly. And we got into a big conversation because what ended up happening is that I, for a long time, associated being smart, being good at something. My mom would say, they're jealous because you're pretty. They're jealous because you're tall. They're jealous because you're good at sports. You're jealous because but then that just made me feel like when I'm good at something or when I shine, that other people are just not going to like me. And I
Mm.
carried that through with this kind of self-deprecating humor my entire life, where I would kind of put myself down or try to be, the butt end of the joke before someone else got to it. Or I would just go through life assuming that everyone else was out to get me. And I
Mm.
became, I would use words like, well, everyone's going to think whatever X if I do this thing or dress this way or put myself out there in this way. And I carried that for many, many years, really being preoccupied with what everybody else was thinking. Every move that I would make would be, how is this going to be perceived by others? More so, or maybe before I would think about, well, what do I really want? How do I really feel about this? So I think I downplayed myself. I think even as I continued through grade school and high school, I think it affected my confidence because I just assumed when I shined or did great that everyone was not going to like me for it. So there was a lot of kind of holding back and downplaying and minimizing myself.
You're preaching to the choir here because this was a situation that I endured as well. And so, yeah, the holding yourself back, the being afraid to shine and being afraid to be truly who you are and as amazing as you can be because you're worried about what others may think or maybe being ostracized for that shine. So what was that turning point then? And what allowed you to overcome it and truly be this beautiful person that you are right now?
So it's funny, and I'm going to have to give my husband credit for this one because, we met when I was in my late 20s. And every once in a while, there'd be a scenario where I would say, oh, I can't do that. People are going to think X. And he would go, who are these people? They sound terrible.
Yeah.
And I would like, well, you know what I mean? Just like, he's like, no, I don't. Who are these people that are going to hate you for going up to accept this award for volunteerism or for, making this decision about something I was going to do for our wedding? Or he's like, who are these people? Who are you trying to please? I'd like to meet them. They sound terrible. And so I just realized that I was constantly catering to this group of people that I didn't even know who I was catering to. These people didn't even exist. And so, he would call me out on it. And then I started to call myself on it when I would have those thoughts of automatically thinking, okay, what are people going to think when I do this? And I thought, people don't think. And the other thing that you realize as you get older is no one's thinking about anyone else but themselves.
Yes.
Everyone's lens is 100% fixated on their own life, their own problems. They're thinking the same thing you're thinking in terms of concern for. So it's just so funny. We're all walking around with these thoughts, and some maybe don't as much as others, but it just got me thinking about the amount of energy that I spent pleasing a group of people that didn't even exist or weren't even caring about what I was doing. And then I would start to do things that I would actually want to do and go, oh, well, that wasn't so bad. There was no backlash because that thing happened. In fact, my real friends, my real family, and even lovely strangers would celebrate these amazing things that I was just so afraid that we're going to get judged. So I do give credit to my husband on that one. There's that famous line, who are these people? They sound terrible. And I just thought, you're right. I don't even know who these people are. And then you start to call yourself out on it, and you start to really come at the lens where you do things that you want to do. And then you go, well, that turned out just fine. So now that I have kids, it's a constant, I'm sure you can appreciate this, and all the moms and parents out there, when I'm giving advice to my kids when they're going through these situations, I'm hoping I'm giving advice and treating it in a way that isn't long lasting and trying to give the perspective that I had, that no one actually cares about what you're doing. Like they do. The people who care and love you do, and they will support you. The rest are kind of focused on themselves. So it's tough advice to give to kids, but I hope my kids don't have to carry that baggage for as long as I did.
And I love, what's your husband's name?
Jeff.
If you don't mind. Jeff.
Yeah.
Kudos to Jeff. Yeah. Yeah. Who are these people? They sound terrible. And I think oftentimes we have this picture, or maybe there is someone actually that you're concerned about. But in my case, it was removing these judgments because they were judgments that I had of myself, and realizing that even if there are people who will say something negative or who will not be happy for you when you are, receiving these accolades or doing these incredible things, deep down, like they have those judgments about themselves, and perhaps there are some unmet needs that they have to worry about. And that's why they're judging others. And so I think looking at it from a lens of compassion sometimes too, and even with my boys, there have been some bullying incidents. And so I try to show them, like, we don't know what the circumstances are of that person. We don't know what they're going through in their lives. And we don't know, what's causing them to lash out or to bully or to do things that are not kind. So, looking at it from both sides, and of course, no one wants to go through life like, you did in those early years of holding themselves back. And I know this was my case too. And if it weren't for this realization with Jeff, for me, it was with a coach who helped me realize, like, who are these people? Like, don't worry about those judgments or what they're thinking. I mean, there would be no The Juggle is Real podcast. There would be, a lot of these things that you've done that have impacted people. And so for the listener, any sort of takeaway to help them maybe gain that awareness, or to kind of move past it in that way of, allowing things to happen in those small steps, and not dimming their light.
Yeah, I mean, I think two things come to mind right away. Number one, and you hit it bang on, it's this idea of empathy, right? We put yourself in the other person's shoes, or the other people's shoes, or whoever it is that you're concerned about judgment from, or that you have a preoccupation with. Generally these reactions from these individuals, these comments, really have nothing to do with you. And, we see it in ourselves sometimes, right? When you're frustrated about something, and the first person that walks in the room when you're in that moment of frustration is going to feel the wrath. It had nothing to do with them, but they are just there and they're just going to receive it. So I do think empathy is really important. It builds our character and our resilience to really be able to put ourselves in other people's shoes. If you're a kid or if you're an adult, to really understand, where is this coming from? And the second piece is, does this person matter enough to me in my life to have that kind of control over, how I feel about something, right? So, do I actually value this person's opinion? I mean, they may be the loudest, but they may not be the most important to me along this life journey that I'm on. So, I always try to think, is this someone that I want to take advice from? Is this someone that I want feedback from? And if it isn't, then again, it's not just how it's being delivered, but it's also the source, is not as important to me. So I would say those are probably the two most important things, is that piece of empathy and understanding, is this really the right person and source to be getting your feedback from?
Brilliant. I love it.
Mm-hmm.
In your career, in this sort of work, motherhood, finding harmony, looking towards balance, your career, you've worked in mostly male dominated industries, right? So you've worked in things like investments and financial services, real estate investing. A lot of these industries are very male dominant. You've also typically been the youngest and the only female. So I would imagine that this can, be challenging or might feel intimidating at times. And many people, many women may avoid these industries altogether for this very reason. Now, I'm just thinking of a post that you shared on social media, which I've loved following you and hearing more about your journey, because you spent some time on stage interviewing Canadian hockey legend Hayley Wickenheiser. Yay, that must have been so fun. But in your conversation, you said that a key takeaway was that she noted that trailblazing is hard and it's done against the grain and in tides of doubt, judgment, and ignorance from others, but it's not impossible, that tides change and it's worthwhile if you endure. So what I would love to learn more about is, well, how that experience was in chatting with Hayley, but how you navigated it in your own life, not only to support yourself, but then also to pave the way for others. You were the first executive in your company to have kids, and then you were the only woman with young kids when you moved to a different company. So you had to really, you really had to endure perhaps some of those strong winds, some of those shifting of tides. How did you help change things when they approached mat leave, when they approached working as a woman with children, and how did you navigate what must have been challenging in the industry that you were in? There's a lot of parts to this question, but I would just love
great.
Yeah.
Yeah, nicely. So we'll come back to Hayley in a second, because she's amazing and she deserves her own little moment in terms of how she inspired me and so many, and she continues to do that. I think for me, you said two words, trailblazing and paving the way. And when you think of those in the most literal sense, if you're paving the way for something, you're actually creating a path that others can follow behind you on, right? I wasn't crawling through a path and leaving no way for anybody to follow me. The idea is really, if you're a trailblazer, you leave a path, you leave clues, you remove the roadblocks, you make it a safe passage. You're up ahead saying, follow me. I've cleared the way, I've surmounted the obstacles, and I've created a smooth path. Now the path may wind and people might kind of go off trail for a while, but for me, I didn't realize it at the time when I was younger, but it became, as I started to, have my first child and get into the struggle of motherhood and career, I thought, well, I'm not going through this just for me. There's no way I'm going to endure this, and everyone behind me is going to have to go through this. I was the first, when I had my first child, I was the first first of all, I was the only female executive on the executive team, so let's just call that out. I was the youngest, and I was the first to have a baby. And at first there was kind of this, well, we won't talk about it because then maybe it won't happen. Like maybe Marissa won't go on that. Let's not acknowledge the growing elephant in the room. And then it just, and it goes back to something I love talking about, tough conversations. I had to sit down with the owners and say, this is happening. I love my job. And today, what I want is I want to be able to balance both as much as I can and want to after I have this baby. I don't want to disappear, because that's a problem for a lot of mat leaves, is they take away your computer, they take away your phone, you take away access, and you're considered the same as an injury or a leave or a short-term leave. Like you really just get kind of thrust out of your company and you disappear for a year, which is really hard to come back to. So, my request was like, today, while I'm pregnant and feeling good about everything, I want to be able to have options. Now, if something happens after I have this baby and my baby's not healthy, or I'm not healthy, or I change my mind and I realize I want to be able to have that flexibility too. So it was a little bit of a, let's go through this together. I'm not going to let you down. I'm going to work hard to really set things up before I go so that you're in great shape. Yes, I'm not falling off a cliff after I have this baby, but I want to be able to see how it goes. Now, in my case, I was fortunate. I had a healthy baby. I really did want to work and do it. It was still very fulfilling, but I really had to negotiate what that would look like, because I was dealing with men who had never experienced this. And also there was this idea of, well, you're not just going to do this for me. We have a lot of other women in this company who are going to have babies or who are pregnant. And so we have to set a precedent. So the company actually established a beautiful mat leave policy with top ups. And I'm not taking credit for it because it was a collaborative effort, but it was something that needed to be talked about and asked for and needed to be developed. So, again, I paved the way. And I was fortunate enough to be able to do that, but it involved some tough conversations, some uncomfortable conversations. And then when I joined the new organization where I had a 2-year-old, or I would say 2.5-year-old and a 1-year-old, all the executives were middle-aged men who had, stay-at-home wives who could, and they could just pick up and leave and travel on a dime and just come home. As you and I know, sometimes it's harder to leave with all the planning sometimes, right? Of coordinating your family and everything. So we would talk as an executive team. I would say, listen, if we could meet for longer hours in the time that I'm traveling on business, then we could all be home. We could all be home sooner with our families, right? Or if we cut this meeting short and started earlier, I could make the 2:00 flight instead of having to wait till the 8:00 flight. It was really, I take this advice. I met Ann Curry once. She's a famous journalist in the US, interviewed many celebrities and dignitaries. And she said to me when she had kids, she goes, I would still travel overseas to interview these individuals. But I said, instead of going for 4 days, we're going for 36 hours. And we're just all going to jam it in. We're all going to work through the night, work hard, and then go back to our families. And she goes, it wasn't just me, the lead anchor, the mom with kids, who benefited. It was everybody. Everybody had families or lives that they wanted to get back to. So it's really about having these tough conversations and having the guts to bring it up and to propose that these benefits don't just benefit me, they benefit everybody. And, one of the pieces of diversity and inclusion that we miss is this idea of equity. And, if nobody else has young kids at home that create challenges for their work or their travel or things like that, then it's not really unfair to them if you're doing something to provide a level playing field for me, for them, right?
Yes, absolutely.
It's not unfair treatment just because you're giving me, some extra support or something of that nature, because they're not in that situation. So it took time for me also to explain what equity really was, but how equity is also beneficial for everybody involved. So again, it was just a matter of having a tough conversation, making the ask. I know a lot of women don't ask; they don't want to bring it up. Some women don't even talk about the fact they have kids at work. It's almost this thing you don't talk about. So it was a lot of understanding that these conversations needed to be had, and there were women coming behind me that we were opening the door for that would never stay in these companies if we didn't offer these types of solutions for them and their families. It wasn't just about the woman; it was about the whole family that got to benefit from this. So yeah, that was. It seemed like the only option at the time, to be honest with you, because I wanted to work and I wanted to be a mom and I wanted to do all the things. And I knew that the right thing was to make the ask and to kind of push through and show them the way. And there were some challenges sometimes, but absolutely worth it in the end.
Thank you so much for doing that. And I think often we're too afraid to even ask. So, just as a key takeaway, to make the ask and hold strong in your belief that, what is right for you will support those around you, because everyone benefits. Right. I mean, they say, like, if you want to get something done, ask a mom, because,
Yeah.
like they are getting stuff done. Right. And so, often the ones who are doing the most in the least amount of time are those who have, so much on their plates. And so I appreciate that you had that courage Any words of advice for someone who might be in this type of a situation? I know people who are even afraid to even start families because they don't know how it will impact their careers, or if they are self-employed, how they'll continue and do things in their business after having children or starting a family. Any words of advice for someone who might be in your shoes when you were pregnant and asking these questions?
Yeah, I mean, make the ask, but have a solution ready to go, right? I mean, sometimes if you wait for your company to go and figure this out, the red tape and the hoops, I mean, come prepared with a solution. Put some thought into what would be ideal for you as a starting point. Now, the negotiations may occur and go back and forth, but really think about what would be best for you. I mean, like you said, we know moms are going to get the job done, right? If you're asking for flex hours, if you're asking for top up so that they don't have to fully replace whatever the ask is, you'll get the job done. You'll step back into your job with full force and flying colors. But if you're set up to succeed, that is a win, not just for you, but for the organization. So I think go in and make the ask and, be specific, have some solutions in mind or some options available to them. And I think too, there's no trophy. I say this all the time to moms, especially. There's no trophy in going it alone. And if you can find a way to make this work, if you're an entrepreneur or a mom, you've got to find the village. You got to find the people to kind of be on that with you, and they're likely going to be part of that solution for you, right? You don't have to just figure this out all by yourself. Work share with colleagues, or different scheduling with having supports with your family and friends. I just I encourage people to figure out solutions that involve other people as well to support the bigger picture.
Yes, I love what you said. There's what did you say about the
No
trophy?
trophy for going it alone.
There's no trophy for going at it alone. Like,
No,
it's so true. Which
no.
brings us back to our friend Hayley Wickenheiser.
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, if anyone knows there is no trophy going at alone, that it is her and the incredible things she's done for the sport of hockey. Any other takeaways from your time spent with her? What was that like?
I mean, she's magical, and she's incredibly humble and very sweet, very smart. And she truly, she doesn't see herself, I think, obviously the way we see her as, this incredible icon. But besides her trailblazing endeavors and personality and everything she's done for Canadian women in hockey, for the Olympics, just for women in general, in terms of how she approaches her life and what she wants. She's also such an inspiration in terms of starting new chapters in her life, right? Like, she had this amazing hockey career and achieved all these great things, and then decided, I'm going to go back to school and be a doctor. And I'm going to go work in an emergency room and save lives. But I'm also going to be the assistant GM for the Toronto Maple Leafs. I mean, she has literally 3 jobs, and she's an absolute testament to the fact that you can do whatever you want to do, as much of it or as little of it, in combination with each other. You can start a whole new chapter and a whole new career in your 30s, in your 40s. So I love that about her, because I think sometimes we get to a certain age in life, we think it's too late, or it's not going to work. It's not for me. I can't learn all these new things. I can't take on this new stuff. I just love the way she tackled a whole new life, a whole new career, a whole new adventure. And that was really inspiring, because I think a lot of us just stay where we are. We don't want to disrupt our families. We don't want to disrupt our lives. But there's people out there who have big dreams, who absolutely could be going after them. And she's a testament to that.
Amazing. Such a testament to leadership and to courage. And these are qualities that I feel like you really embrace as well. Through the work that you do as a keynote speaker, you have the incredible ability to just get up on a stage in front of thousands of people. That can be some people's nightmares, right? Like,
Used to
people's
be mine,
biggest
for what it's
fears.
worth. Yeah.
Oh, good to know. Good to know. You've also interviewed many celebrities and politicians and people like Hayley. And I'd love to get into a little bit more on that later too, for some of the others that you've had a chance to speak to. But you note that no matter, what that stage is, we all have this ability to find our own voice. So whether it is on stage, whether it's in our careers, or making that ask to go on a maternity leave with our partner or with our family, how can we get comfortable speaking up, Marissa. And really, we don't have to be in front of thousands. It can apply to everything in our lives with our friends, our children, all that sort of stuff. How do we get comfortable with and find our voice?
Such a good question, because you're right. It's not, how many people have to get on stage in front of thousands of people? Not a lot of people. And I suspect those who are doing that have prepared and trained, and they're there for a reason, not to say that they're fully comfortable with it. I think some of the biggest speakers in the world still admit to having stage fright. But I think sometimes in life we have stage fright in life. And just speaking up, it's funny, my kids and I get caught on, social media videos sometimes. And our favorite ones to sit down and watch are when they have kind of hidden cameras and they're watching people do good, like acts of kindness. And they come out afterwards, like, oh, this is a show, or we were just behind the scenes to see how you would speak up. And the reality is that not enough people speak up. Not enough people use their voice. Sadly, there's 30 people that walk by someone before that 31st person speaks up and says something or does something. So I always encourage people, and this kind of goes back to our first part of our conversation. What's the worst thing that can happen, right? What is it, like the real worst thing, not the worst thing that we imagine in our minds and blow completely out of proportion, but and then I think, what is the best thing? Because we get stuck on the worst thing too often, and that's the reel that generally plays through our mind, like, oh gosh, this could go sideways. But then I think, what is the best thing that could happen? How could this go? And I am a big believer in the power of visualization, and people can buy into that as much as they want. But I picture how I want my big talks to go. I picture how I want my interviews to go. I picture how I want tough conversations to go that I'm having one-on-one or in small groups. But I think finding our voice is ultimately finding the words to create the outcomes that we're trying to get to, right? So if it's in our friend groups, if it's in our mom groups, if it's, in our community, in our homes, at work, it's finding the words that allow us to get to the results or the impact that we're trying to create, and understanding that there's a lot of good that can come through the challenge of getting to the other side of that tough conversation or finding those words within us. Most people, I would say, are generally not comfortable speaking up and finding the right words. And I think if we understand that when we're speaking to other people, there's an appreciation immediately for people who look at us and go, well, that was brave, or that was impressive that they found those. I'm always impressed with people who just kind of speak up in certain settings or find the right things to say. Even if they stumble through it, eventually you get there. So for me, it's going back to that idea of, don't worry so much about what people are thinking. Don't focus on worst case, but focus on best case and find the words to kind of get to the best case scenario that you've pictured in your mind and that you're excited to get to. So that's what I do when I've had some really neat interviews and I've been super nervous and sweating in all the wrong places and worried I'm going to say the wrong thing. I just kind of picture the end of it where I'm exhaling and going, oh my gosh, that was amazing. I'm picturing myself, at the end of the interview saying to that person, that was really great. Thank you. And I genuinely have a natural kind of curiosity and love. I love people's stories. I generally like people. And so I think if you're coming at things from a good place, from this place of curiosity and impact, that you can probably find the right words to string together. It doesn't have to be perfect, but you just have to say it.
Oh, thank you for sharing. And I love how you say to focus on the outcome.
Yes.
And it reminds me of from the work of Gary Zukav, which is really like, what is the intention behind it? Like, what is your intention? And if your intention is good, then you will find your voice, and that path will come to you, and you will know what to say, through finding that positive outcome and in knowing that it's going to work out. Right. And I received some really great advice when I was about to do my first national broadcast segment. And so I was all nervous, and I was, really making it about me, and like, if I was going to say the right thing, or if I was going to screw up, or if I was going to miss some like key point that I was supposed to hit. And this person was like, you know what? It's not about you. It's about the people who are watching, and how are you going to impact them? How are you going to help them? And how are you going to support them? And I'll say, like, I was talking about, like something that wasn't like life or death here, but it was like, how can I make one person's life easier? How can I support one person? And even if it is, having that difficult conversation with someone, like, like you said, what is the outcome that you want? So if you want to find that common ground, that positive outcome, I think that can really fuel you and maybe give you that courage that you might need to get up on that stage or to say those words or to ask to have that conversation.
Yeah, I think, think about and again, I love tough conversations. It's one of my favorite topics. Because I think a lot of people really struggle with them, but they're so important and impactful when they're done, not even well, when they're just done, right? When you can just have a tough conversation.
Yes.
I think we focus, like, for example, let's say you have to let somebody go if you're a manager or you own a business. And in the end, you're so worried about that they're going to hate you, that people are going to think you're mean. Again, you're totally thinking about yourself instead of thinking, if this news was being delivered to me, how would I want it to be delivered, right? If I was on the receiving end of this, back to our original comment about putting ourselves in other people's shoes, flexing that empathy muscle. How would I want to receive this? How would I want to be made to feel? And when I have tough conversations, I always think, I'm glad I'm the one that gets to do this because I know that the person is in good hands with me. I know, and that to your point, I just, instead of focusing on all the things that can go wrong, I think, no, I'm going to do this as best I can. I'm going to do it, the utmost respect and care for their feelings. It may not go perfectly. I may not say the perfect thing, but I know my intentions, to your point, are good. And if I can just deliver that in a way that I wish it was delivered to me, we'll get there. Because most people struggle with tough conversations and they avoid them at all costs. And then it gets worse than actually having the conversation in the first place. So I think it's really important to find your voice and find a way to string words together that create the outcomes that you're looking for.
Beautiful. Yeah, I think sometimes we build it up in our heads too, or just like the not doing really weighs on us. And so actually just having that conversation and really A, takes so much weight off your shoulders, but B, this is another important lesson that I learned, is that being clear is kind, and actually saying what needs to be said is the most loving, most caring thing that you can possibly do. And it just making me think right now, because my son's going through hockey tryouts, and so there's cuts, and my husband is a coach, and yeah, and he, my husband wears his heart on his sleeve. He truly is one of the most empathetic people. And so this is very stressful for him to go through and have to, to speak to parents or to have to look at children that he's been coaching and say, like the next season you won't be on the team. And it's very stressful. And so to your point, the way that we can deliver it and have a difficult conversation, being able to put yourself in that person's shoes and really understanding that, delivering the message with kindness and with love really is the best that we can do. And I appreciate that you've been able to have tough conversations for yourself, to be able to pave the way and to be that leader. So much of what we're talking about today really comes back to leadership. And you believe that there is a leader in all of us, and we just have to continue to fuel it, continue to nurture it. And, whether that means we're a leader at work or in our family, at home, with our inner circle of friends, in our communities, all of these things are so, so important. And I know that you have a new podcast that will be launching soon that tackles the stories of leaders from all walks of life and how they show up and sort of what makes all of these people tick and what the learnings are that they have. Can you share more about this new podcast and when it's launching and more about what we can expect from it?
Well, thank you. Thank you for asking. I'm super passionate about leadership. I have been for so long. It's the greatest joy in my corporate career was to be able to lead and collaborate with people. And I do believe that there is a leader in all of us. It shows up differently. And I love hearing the stories of people, what makes them tick. And I think about, we sometimes think of leaders in the more traditional sense, in the corporate world, people who have the titles and the power. There's certainly amazing leaders who hold those positions. There's a lot of people who hold those positions that are not so great leaders, in my opinion, as well, too. But there's leaders in life and we all need that. And I think about it as, in my role as an executive coach, really trying to foster great leaders for today and also for the next generation. I think about building that up in my kids. But I also think in my friend group, we all have those friends are the ones who, if it wasn't for them, we would never see each other because they're the ones who are making the plans, sending out 1,000 dates until we can all agree on one date. I don't know why it's so hard. They're the ones in the moment who are like, don't forget it's crazy hair day tomorrow, or don't forget it's the last day to order pizza or whatever it is. So those leaders exist in so many different shapes and forms. And for me, I love having great conversations with people. And the hope for my podcast, similarly to yours, is that it's a great conversation that people just want to pull a chair up to. And they just want to tune in. And I'm hoping people can just take nuggets from it to, help their everyday lives as a parent, as a coach. What a great example. Your husband, I have friends whose kids are going through hockey tryouts right now too. And it's heartbreaking. But so good to build that resilience muscle too. So yeah, I'm really excited. It launches in early June 2024. It's called Teeter Talks because my last name is Teeter and because every other name I liked was taken. And I've been told it sounds like tater tots, but I'm okay with that because those are delicious. So I don't know, maybe I'll get a tater tot sponsor who wants to get behind the podcast. I'm completely open to that. But yeah, I just selfishly, I love talking to amazing people and it'll be a lot of fun. And I'm thrilled to get to share some stories with everybody.
I cannot wait to listen to Teeter Talks. And I might say I like the alliteration, but what it also makes me think of is a teeter totter. Like, when you went to the playground, maybe this was intentional, but a lot of what you do is really looking to the scales and I know you don't believe in work-life balance per se because it means everything in equal amounts, but this notion of harmony in if you're on that teeter-totter, you have to be, both ends have to be working in order for it to be in full harmony. So I can't wait to tune into that.
That was amazing. I didn't even think about that, but that was great. Thank you.
And I can't let you leave, Marissa, without talking, having 3 boys, a husband who's a hockey player. You had an interview with Wayne Gretzky and you note that it was the bucket list item you didn't even know yet you had or needed, but that it was so inspiring for you. I've listened to interviews with Wayne Gretzky before, and it's true. He's so humble. He's, when you think of the career he had and how much he's accomplished, one of the quotes that stuck out for you in your conversation was, "I skate to where the puck is going, not where it has been." Can you speak to your conversation with Wayne and how you are applying this phrase as a lesson for you in your life, maybe how the listener can do this as well?
Sure. I mean, so the funniest part of the story, I feel like I need to preface by saying, and I might lose a lot of fans this way, is that I'm not a huge hockey fan. That. Yeah. Clearly you guys are all in hockey at your house, but I didn't grow up in a hockey household.
Huge hockey fan myself. Yeah.
I appreciate the sport. And honestly, if I could get a genie to grant me a wish, it would be to be able to play hockey for what it's worth. So I am, I wish I could play hockey, but when I started my research for my interview with him, I remember going to my husband and saying, "Did you know that Wayne?" And I would just spew off all these stats and facts. And he goes, "Everybody knows that."
Yeah.
So I thought, oh, this is not a good starting point. Like, don't get me wrong, I don't live under a rock. I knew he was amazing, but when it came to a man who had the most records for the most records, and it was set, like it was amazing. And then you just look at his family life, what he's done in the community, and what he's done for this country. How he continues to come back and support this country. He's very chatty in the sense that he's a storyteller. And he doesn't want to talk about him, which I really was, he's so humble. He has wonderful stories. He's got a great sense of humor. You can tell that there's something in his personality that just keeps him, he's just grounded. Like when he just speaks, you could just tell he's humble and he's grounded. It's funny, we did a rapid fire and I asked him all these questions. And so I asked him, what his drink is at Tim Hortons, right? When he comes back to Canada. And he goes, "Well, it's not the 9-9. So apparently there's a drink out there that's 9 creams, 9 sugar. It's the way." And I said, oh my. So we had a good laugh about that. He's like, "I couldn't picture anybody walking in, but he's like, I wish one day when I'm there, I could see someone order that and actually drink it." He talked about his father, Walter, how he had a regular, like when he would go home to Brantford. First of all, he wouldn't tell his parents when he was coming home because his dad would tell everybody, and there'd be hundreds of people waiting at the house for Wayne to come home. And he'd get home and his dad would have hundreds of pieces of memorabilia for him to sign because something that Wayne learned throughout his life and even after his dad passed is that his dad would reply to every piece of fan mail and send
Wow.
stuff and show up where he could. Wayne Gretzky said, I'd be on the other side of the world and, I'd meet someone in some far off country, and through broken English, they would tell me that my dad sent them something in the mail or replied to their letter. So the way he spoke about his family was beautiful. He's very family oriented. He talks about being a grandfather, which is so adorable, just about, how his kids talk about how great he was. And Wayne Gretzky goes, yeah, I was okay. I was okay. Right. As a hockey player, and how his grandkids' father, Dustin Johnson, the great golfer, he's trying to get the kids into golf, but the kids just want to play hockey. So, he just had so many relatable stories as a grandfather, as a father, as a Canadian icon. And his quote that I love about skating where the puck is going, I love it because it's such a great analogy for life. I used to tell people that I work with who had gone through a lot of transition in their roles, specifically in one organization, that you guys spend so much time looking at the rearview mirror of life, right? You're looking back so fondly at the way things were and used to be. I said, you got to get out of bed and look out the windshield. Like, this is where we're going. And the windshield is way bigger in terms of opportunity and visibility than the rearview mirror. And you can't do anything about what's going on behind you anyways. So I just love that quote because it reminds all of us that all we can do is look forward. And in fact, the greater impact we can have, the greater perspective we have is ahead of us. It's not behind us. Take the learnings and move forward. So yeah, that was, I was so nervous when I interviewed him, I have to say. I was an hour and 20 minutes later, it just went by as a blur. I ended up watching the video afterwards to remember how it all went, but he's an incredible Canadian icon, super humble, and lots of learnings to share in how he's approached his career and his post-career life, but just such a great guy.
So cool. So cool. And I'm thinking maybe it was a good thing that you didn't know how, coveted he was, like, because then it's like, a little bit of that ignorance, maybe it would give you
I hope so.
help a little bit, but what an amazing experience. And it makes me think of really when we're looking to life, like you said, like with the windshield ahead of us, and we don't often know what there is to gain in the future, right? Like, we can count all the things we may lose, right, in current life when we're looking to take that next step, or make that ask, or make a change in our lives, or let go of some of those past things that are weighing us down, like the bullying, or being afraid to stand up for things in your work or career, any of those things. Like, you really can see what you might lose, but you have no idea what you're going to gain unless you look ahead and look forward and look through that windshield and skate to where the puck is going, not where it has been. Exactly. So I love that you can kind of pull this all together and take the insights that you've learned in these incredible experiences and actually put them into action and lead your life with these lessons and moving forward this way. It's been such a pleasure chatting with you, Marissa, and I can't let you go without asking, because I love to ask my guests about their ongoing journey with authentic practices of self-care, because, as a mom with a very full life and in a very successful career, you're wearing many hats. The juggle is real in your life. But how do you consciously choose those practices that are authentic to you and help you manage all of the things on your plate? So just to close, I'd love to know one thing that you are doing to care for yourself, and then one thing you're not doing, or something that you're saying no to help you feel, I say, better balance, but more harmony in your life.
Yeah. And listen, I love the idea of balance, because I think people can really resonate with it. I think for me, it's always been, if we could all get the pieces to work together, that we'll eventually get there too, finding that harmony. Something for self-care for me has always been about taking care of my body, right? And it's never been about how I look, but it's how I feel. And as we get older and spend a lot of time in front of computers, the hips, the back, the neck start to go. I love to walk. I've been doing so much. I think during COVID, there was nothing else to do but get outside and enjoy nature and walk. And I really started to get into the practice of just walking. And I'm not even concerned about pace or distance. I just get outside in the fresh air, rain, sun, winter, and walk. And I love listening to podcasts. I listen to lots of different podcasts to, some are a little bit more serious than others, some more light. But I just listen to things that just are uplifting. And I sometimes just walk in silence because I think a lot of us don't have a lot of time alone or have silence in our lives. So for me, walking in silence, it's hard. I'm so inclined to call somebody or to turn on a podcast or do something, but just 10 minutes, even if it's just 10 minutes. I'm someone who struggles with meditation, the idea of sitting still and doing nothing for a little bit and trying to calm my mind. So I find through walking, I can do that. So I always encourage people to go for a walk, even with my kids when they're having a moment, I'm like, let's just go for a walk and just walk it off. And I find that has been easier for me to control and squeeze in between meetings. I'll take something that maybe doesn't have to be a video call and turn it into a phone call so I can also go for a little walk. So those are little things that I try to do. Something I'm not doing, I have a really hard time saying no, which I know is a disease that a lot of us are inflicted with. And so I've really been selective in recent years in terms of where I can have the most impact to be able to say yes. I find, especially in the community, working with charities, I love doing that type of stuff. And I know it's so important. And I always want to say yes, but then I realize I'm no good to anybody if I'm not showing up fully, there and present and fulfilled. So I find myself saying no to those types of things or carving out time in my calendar specifically for people who want access to me. So let's grab a coffee, Marissa, or let's do something so that I have specific times that I'm dedicated to doing that to make sure I'm not doing too much or too little of it. Managing my calendar is a really amazing way that helps to do that as well. So I think it's just being okay saying no, and again realizing that no one's going to hate you because you say no. The people will not judge if you say no, I guess. So that's what I try to do, and it's a work in progress.
Yes, it's this ongoing thing, right? And every time we do say no, or every time we do, remove something, it's those little things that do end up, we have that evidence of, okay, you know what, now that I've rested, or now that I've had that talk, or now that I've done the thing, I have so much more capacity to give more, or to be more, or to just show up in my best light. I've loved chatting with you. I hope we can have another conversation again soon.
We will. Well, you're going to come on my podcast, right?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Teeter Talks. It's coming out in June. I'm going to put some links in the notes for this podcast episode for the listener who wants to learn more about you and check you out and follow and get more of this inspiration from yourself and your journey and all of the incredible people and the lives that you've touched. So I love chatting with you, and I can't wait to do it again soon. Thank you so much, Marissa.
Thank you so much, Andryanna. And thank you for the great work you're doing. It's amazing to have someone out there spreading the word and being a beacon of light and hope and inspiration. So congratulations to you and everything you do. And I do look forward to chatting with you soon.
Oh, beautiful. Thank you. Oh my gosh. I loved this conversation with Marissa. I know I've said it a few times, but it truly does fill my cup to have conversations with incredible women who are doing such amazing things, like Marissa, such an avid learner and with such a relentless drive to grow and improve and support others. It truly is an inspiration to me. And when we talk about things like self-care, hearing from people like Marissa truly does just fill my soul and make me so happy and makes me want to go out there and do amazing things as well. I'm so thankful that we had this discussion. And if you want to go learn more about Marissa, follow her on her journey and learn about the ways that you can work with her, because now she is coaching and she is serving others as well. You can head to her website, which is marissateeter.com. The links are in the notes for this podcast episode. And be sure to follow along. Her new podcast is going to be absolutely amazing. And I can't wait to be a guest on her show as well. If you got something from this episode, if you think that someone else could benefit, I invite you to share with one person, one friend, someone whose life that you can impact as well. Share this to your socials. Tag me on Instagram at Andryanna G. That's ANDRYANNAG. And do all the things like follow, subscribe, rate on Apple Podcasts, write me a short and sweet review. It would truly mean the world to me to hear your feedback. And I can't wait to see you here. We've got so many great topics and guests lined up for the future. So come back soon. Until then, take good care.